All right, welcome everybody to week 8. We're going to be continuing our discussion of fallacies today. We're going to do probably 6 new fallacies today. There is a cheat sheet on Canvas that lists all the fallacies we study in this class, so that can help you memorize it for quizzes and midterms and things like that. There's also this website here where it has NFL refs explaining fallacies basically. And so I have some friends that will just, copy and paste these on, Facebook when somebody makes a, I don't know, begging the question, which is kind of like circular argument. Circular argument also. Fallacy is when you say an argument's wrong because it contains a fallacy. Like, not necessarily, Biden is president, Trump used to be president. You should, brush your teeth. That the conclusion is actually true. Just because it's a fallacy doesn't mean the conclusion is not true. Correlation is not causation. We'll do that probably on Wednesday. And so it's kind of funny. If you like football, you might like this. I've posted it on Canvas as well. Okay, so music, of course, earlier in class was Pink Floyd, Dark Side of the Moon. So, we are going to start today with red herring and non sequitur. And they're basically the same fallacy. The difference between the two of them is red herrings are intentional and non sequiturs are not. And so, what a non sequitur is when the conclusion doesn't follow from the premises. You might be like, well, wait, isn't that like all fallacies? And it's kind of like, yeah, pretty much. So you'll rarely see like specifically in this class, like I limit non sequitur as an option on a midterm question or a quiz to like when it's just like completely out of, left field. Like for example, on a previous midterm, the UN said the cause of COVID is the patriarchy. And I'm like, that's like they didn't argue for it or anything. They just out of left field comes, patriarchy was the cause of COVID-19. I was like, I thought it was a virus, but okay. So that would be a non sequitur, right? It's just like there's where did that come from? For example, on the midterm, Biden is president, Trump was president. You should brush your teeth. There's no connection between the conclusion and the premises. Non sequitur. A red herring is when you do that deliberately to try to distract, right? So somebody's coming at you with like, impeccable evidence that your client is guilty. And so you say, you just start talking about something completely different. Like you can't deal with the argument. Like they're dead to rights got you. So you just start talking about like distractions and look at the monkey, look at the funny monkey over here, and trying to get people to pay attention to something else. Distractions are very commonly used in politics. If you play this game here called The Contender is really hilarious. It will make watching political debates a lot of fun. It's basically the political debate game. And so one person, it's like Apples to Apples or Cards Against Humanity. One person's the moderator. They give you a question that you have to answer, like, should America increase its defense budget? And then you can play cards like distractions, like, hey, how about that local sports team? Go local sports team, and things like that. And all of them have actual quotes from actual speeches where you can see where people have used them in real life. And you have to like string together a speech by playing these cards. Like, well, some people say, that America should disband its military, but I say it should be stronger, So a red herring is very commonly used when people don't want to answer a question. So, for example, these are actual quotes from actual political debates. First one is asking a question, a hard question of a Democrat. The second one's asking a hard question of a Republican. Like I said in this class, I maintain a 1-to-1 balance, as all things should be. So, the moderator said, if implemented, your plan will cost $10 trillion. How do you plan to pay for it? Well, that's just a Republican talking point. You didn't answer the question. Everyone applauds. Yeah, like what is it? They didn't answer the question. They just distracted. Okay. Moderator. Abstinence-only sex education has been shown to be less effective at stopping teen pregnancies than comprehensive sex education. So if you don't want teens to get pregnant, why do you support it? Well, I think one of our fundamental values in America is freedom and the holy bond between a parent and their child. Get the government out of our bodies. Cheers. Yeah. Like, wait, you didn't answer the question. Like, what? What's going on here? You know, that's just a distraction. You know, you get everyone cheering. You like wave. Oh, I'm out of time. Oh, no. It's very, very commonly used. So these would be red herrings because they're deliberately distracting from the fact that they don't have $10 trillion just lying around. So I recommend this game if you're into politics. It's a lot of fun. So red herring is a non sequitur that distracts. Okay. And a non sequitur is when the logic doesn't follow to the conclusion, right? You've got your premises, you've got your conclusion, but there's no logical connection between the two of them. So probably I might do like a question on the midterm where you like try to figure out if it's like a red herring or a non sequitur. It's really usually kind of hard to tell, right? It's like, here's an argument. If I'm a tennis player, I'm a sports player. I'm not a tennis player, therefore I'm not a sports player. So what do you guys think? Is this a non sequitur or a red herring? Do you think this person was deliberately making an argument? And also recognize the form of argument this is. This is one of the 4 forms of argument. Denying the antecedent, affirming the consequent, modus tollens, modus ponens. Tell me what form of argument this is, and you should have plenty of experience with it from the midterm, and whether or not you think this is a non sequitur or a red herring. Do you think the person is deliberately trying to come up with a bad conclusion here? If so, it's a red herring. If you think it's just an accidental mistake, it's a non sequitur. And what form of argument is this? Are we denying the antecedent? Are we affirming the consequent? Is it a straight deduction, modus ponens? Is it a proof by contradiction kind of modus tollens? What do you think? Got to give me both in order to get your participation point. So edit your response. If you think it's a red herring, say it's a red herring, denying the antecedent, or affirming the consequent, or modus ponens, or whatever. And if you think it's a non sequitur, edit your response. Non sequitur, affirming the consequent, fallacy. Got to do both on one line. So edit your previous response. Okay. Or I guess I could just read it over. Two more responses coming in. Okay, this is probably a non sequitur. It's probably not a red herring. Like, this doesn't have the feel to me of somebody who's deliberately trying to make a mistake. People make denying the antecedent, like, arguments all the time, just incorrectly, right? So, if I'm a tennis player, I'm a sports player. Denying the antecedent, I'm not a tennis player. Therefore, I don't play sports. Well, no, I could play soccer or something like that, right? All I said is, if I play tennis, I'm a sports player, and all you know is that I haven't started tennis yet. But I could be playing hockey, I could be playing, you know, football, soccer, whatever. So, yeah, this is a denying the antecedent and non sequitur, I think. Now, this one here, I'm going to have to stop the recording to, so I don't get a copyright struck, but it's the Chewbacca defense from South Park, if you want to watch this at home. And we're back. All right, so yes, this is a red herring. So Johnny Cochran says, if Chewbacca does not make sense, you must acquit. There is no connection between the two. So at a minimum, it's a non sequitur. But because Cochran, on the dream team of OJ's lawyers here, was doing it deliberately, then we would call it a red herring. Okay. So again, see if you can guess. If this was on a quiz, how would you vote? People like looking at giant sequoias. Houses should have nice things to look at inside of them. Therefore, you should put giant sequoias inside of your house. So People like looking at giant sequoias. Houses should have nice things to look at inside of them. Therefore, you should put giant sequoias inside of your house. Is this a red herring or a non sequitur? What do you think? I guess you can make the argument. It depends on, is this a giant sequoia salesman? Like, is this person trying to sell giant sequoias to you? Or is it, like your interior decorator? Like, who's the person making it, the argument, So I would say this is probably non sequitur. It doesn't feel to me like the person is intentionally trying to, like, distract or something like that. See if we can shrink a little more. There we go. All right. Red herring or non sequitur. People say that it was wrong for me to rig the primaries, but honestly, what does it mean for something to be wrong? Until we can all come to consensus on what objective morality means, you can't say it's wrong. Yeah, definitely red herring. Definitely red herring on this one. Good. All right. Get those participation points. All right. And the exception to this is that sometimes, yeah, you do need to, like, have a sidebar where you will talk about whether or not what a word means, right? Like, sometimes people say, all right, we need to discuss what does racism mean in order for us to have a conversation about racism. And that's sometimes you have to do that. Sometimes you do have to distract and be like, all right, we need, like, we're clearly talking past each other here. We need to settle on some common terms. Otherwise, you can't debate if everyone's talking about racism meaning equality of outcome versus equality of opportunity. Like, you're just not going to have any sort of meaningful conversation until you agree on something. So sometimes you can sidebar. A lot of the times, though, when people sidebar, like, they're like, all right, we're going to have to answer the question of whether or not God exists before we can, like, no, that's a massive, that's, going back thousands of years in human history. We're not going to accomplish this on Facebook, buddy. Like, no, I'm not going to accept that distraction from you. Okay. So, so technically denying the antecedent and affirming the consequent, those are non sequiturs because the conclusion does not follow from the premise. But in this class, I'm going to use non sequiturs specifically when you're just like, wait, what? That conclusion just came out of nowhere. Like, all squares have 4 sides, rectangles have 4 sides, therefore you should drink coffee. Like, non sequitur. Okay. All right. So Strawman is the argument of Facebook. So this is one of the this is one of the reasons why I basically just never participate on any thread that has any public comment allowed on it, right? So strawmanning is when you take somebody's view and you exaggerate it badly, and basically make it say something different from what it was said. And you make it stupid, you make it weak, you make it easy to attack. And that's, of course, why people strawman. It's like if you say, I think we should thin out the trees in Yosemite so that we don't get forest fires. That's kind of a reasonable stance to take. Maybe you can argue against it, maybe not. But like, stopping forest fires seems like an admirable thing to do. And, we've been having a lot of forest fires in Yosemite. And so when somebody on Facebook wants to argue against that, what they'll do is they'll exaggerate that. So how would you exaggerate engaging in brush removal and thinning of trees in Yosemite? Give me a straw man of that, and we'll see if you can actually get what actually happened in real life here. So somebody wants to, like, the National Park Service. This is an actual story, by the way. The National Park Service wanted to engage in brush removal and thinning the trees on the floor of Yosemite to reduce the fire threat. because we've been having these massive fires in Yosemite on a regular basis. Sequoia is especially bad. Like, I was in Sequoia this last summer. Man, it's just burned out area after burned out area. And so the Park Service is like, all right, let's not let that happen because it sucks, you know, and it's not safe for people, you know, especially on the valley floor when they got all those tourists there and stuff. You want to promote deforestation? Yeah, that would be a good straw man. We won't have oxygen if the trees are cut down. That's pretty wild, but yeah, that would be a straw man. And so what? The environmental group filed a lawsuit, and they said that the National Park Service wants to start up lumbering operations in the Yosemite Valley floor. And it's like, really? Like, lumbering? Like, they're gonna clear cut, like, you know, the iconic, you know, Yosemite Valley floor? I don't think so. You know, it's like, and so they filed a lawsuit, and I think if I'm remembering it correctly, they got a moratorium put on the brush removal, but then it became irrelevant because it burned down. Yeah, so the environmental groups trying to save the trees ended up, you know, causing the trees to go up like a torch. So, you know, oops. A very famous example of straw man is Kathy Newman versus Jordan Peterson. Let's see if I can find an example of this. No, that's Johnny Cochran. So Kathy Newman is a BBC journalist, and her whole thing was like, she would straw man over and over again. And so you would see Jordan Peterson saying, that's not actually what I said. That's not actually what I said. That's not actually what I said, over and over again. There's a famous BBC segment. Let me pause it because, again, I don't want to get copyright struck. You can look this up. It's just so you're saying, so you're saying, so you're saying. So you'd see her saying, so you're saying, so you're saying, so you're saying, over and over again. And just, you know, one of the worst examples of, you know, journalism I've seen. So online, the way that this works is somebody will post a stance and they will have, usually they're qualifiers. So qualifiers are statements like some, none, all. And, you know, you say anything defending Biden, you're 100% a Biden supporter. If you say anything defending Trump, you're 100% a Trump supporter. Like, they don't understand any subtlety or nuance. Like, that is a foreign concept to people on Facebook. And they'll just exaggerate out anything you say. Like, if you 10% support something, you 100% support it. You know, if you say, I'm a vegetarian. Oh, so you must think that everybody who eats meat, it must be a murderer, huh? Or if, you know, you're like, I'm an atheist. Well, you must not be able to have any objection to murder, you know? And it's like, yeah, there's a lot of atheists out there who do actually believe murder is wrong, believe it or not. So, so for example, this is one of the reasons, like I said, why I don't participate in any public things on general principle. But my own, against my better judgment, I did participate in one a couple weeks ago. And so the EFF, which was a group I was a member of for a long time, the EFF is the Electronic Freedom Foundation. I've recently left the organization after having been a member of it for a number of years. Why would an atheist not believe murder is wrong? Because if they don't believe in God, they must not believe in morality. Straw man, right? So, you know, most atheists, I think, would prefer people not murder. Just throwing that out there. But yeah, it's a common straw man that if you don't believe in God, then you can't have any morality. Right? So, however, things like Kantian ethics allow you to have morality without divine command theory. Right? Just say, all right, our ethics come from the categorical imperative. You know, we can figure out what's right and wrong by thinking about if everyone does it. You know, okay, must not lie. Or a very, very common thing that atheists use for ethics is utilitarianism. So Sam Harris has this kind of moral hedonistic kind of ethic where human flourishing, human well-being is the good, and anything that hurts human health is the bad. And it's basically moral hedonism. And so you can have an ethical system. You can't have divine command theory, but divine command theory is not the only ethical system to get. And this is one of the reasons why I explain all the different ethical theories, because we're going to be talking about a lot of ethical questions during the semester. And you have to understand the different ways that people determine right or wrong. And this is something that actually bugged me when I was at this conference. By the way, I'm going to be at a conference next Wednesday and Friday. So the classes will be online, asynchronous next Wednesday and Friday. I'm going to post recordings for you guys. I'll be at a conference. Last year at this conference, it's for computer science professors. Last year at this conference, I attended a seminar, Birds of a Feather seminar, on professors who teach ethics. And I asked them, I'm like, all right, which, because we're coming up with questions, is this right? Is this wrong? Should Facebook be allowed to reveal your location to the government, for example? People would say yes, because the government might be investigating a crime, and then, they need your location to arrest you. And then people on the no side would say, well, okay, it's an invasion of privacy, et cetera, et cetera. But I asked them, all right, guys, what ethical system are we using here? When we're developing these questions, what are we using to determine what's right and wrong? And they didn't have any idea what I was talking about. And I was like, oh, maybe, there's been a big push, by the way, to have ethics taught in computer science. I think Fresno State's actually getting a separate ethics class for computer science ethics. And from what I saw from my fellow professors, they just sort of have some sort of I don't know, this is right, I can't explain why, kind of thing. Clearly invasion of privacy is wrong. All right, well, what's more wrong, invasion of privacy or being able to persecute a murderer? But what if the government abused, they don't have natural rights? What are those? Yeah. So, so understanding why something is good or bad is kind of important. And I'm kind of the opinion that maybe philosophers should be teaching ethics and not computer science professors. Because if the people who are writing the computer science ethics questions don't have any understanding of ethics, what are the odds that the random computer science professor that gets stuck with this class is going to know it? Probably. I don't have high hopes for that one. I think maybe you should get a philosopher involved or co-teach the class or something like that. Okay, anyway, a bit of an aside. So I was engaged in an online argument, and I was responding to the EFF. The EFF is the Electronic Freedom Foundation, and in general, they care about things like privacy and cryptography and things like that. And they were attacking the new Twitter under Elon Musk for not releasing a transparency report. So a transparency report, every year Twitter would make a report saying how many times they responded to a warrant. The government would say, here's a warrant. We want all the tweets from Alejandro. And the transparency report would respond with, we responded to these 57% of the time. And there was a total of 1,000 requests, and we approved 570 of them or something like that. And so the EFF was criticizing him for not doing it this year, probably because they were fired, because Elon has fired 7/8 of the company, right? So what I said was the Twitter files were actually more transparent than the transparency reports, because the transparency reports were supposed to say what involvement Twitter had with the government, and they didn't say anything about working with the FBI and CIA and NSA and Secret Service and having monthly meetings with them and allowing the FBI to moderate Twitter unofficially. None of that. And they're supposed to report it. If you read their transparency report guidelines. They were supposed to report any involvement of the government with their moderation, and they didn't. And so I said, look, Elon's Twitter files has done more for transparency. Like, we didn't know anything about this stuff, you know. And then people have said, oh, you must worship Elon, and I'm like, no, I didn't say that. It's just, you know, and like they're doing laugh emoji, and I'm like, I'm not saying I'm worshiping Elon. I'm just saying, like, the reports that we got here, like, told us things that we didn't get any of, that they were supposed to report that they weren't reporting, you know. So it's more valuable. And then it just immediately became, well, this is disinformation. Well, okay, which part of it's disinformation? Well, I already explained that. No, you didn't. Like, if you're saying it's disinformation, you're saying it must be false. Which one of these screenshotted primary source documents is false? Well, disinformation doesn't mean the information's false. I'm like, yeah, it does. That's actually what it means, you know. And it just causes your blood pressure to go up. You're like, oh, you're such an idiot, you know, like, you know. And so that's why I just don't talk to people online, because Strawman is the name of the game when it comes to online arguments. So, give me a straw man, like something that you've seen online, like, or even in person, where somebody takes a stance and exaggerates it to be ridiculous. We have two on chat here, but I want you guys to get your participation points. So give me some good strawman beating a straw horse to death or something. I don't know. Yeah, like one would be, you know, if you want to allow some amount of trees to be removed, then exaggerating that out to clear cutting Yosemite, right? And that's actually a real headline, right? Like, that was Washington's blog, yeah. Like, that's an actual headline, clear cutting. You know, like, you take out some trees, it becomes all trees, right? Because subtlety and nuance dies. It goes on the internet to die. Like, the fact that you might want to do something some of the way and not all of the way, you know, is a fact lost on people on the internet. Bruh, so would the Amber Heard and Johnny Drop case be one? She tried making Depp's arguments seem very dramatic or something like that. It didn't happen. Yeah, I mean, undoubtedly. I didn't pay that much attention to the Johnny Depp and Amber Heard case, because I don't really care. But yeah, if somebody was like misrepresenting what the other side said and exaggerating it out, you know, to the nth degree, yeah, that'd be strong, man. I hate pineapples. You're saying all pineapples should be extinct. Or I like pineapple on my pizza, therefore you're a monster. I don't know. Let's get a couple more strawmen here. Yeah, I think you should drink more water. What? You think I should drink nothing but water? I think Quake is a good video game. Why do you hate all of their video games? I didn't like the cookies you made, so I'm a bad baker. Yeah. And this is why I don't like talking to people online. If I specifically go into like a debate area where you know you're going to be debating people, it's one thing. But like just talking to random people on Facebook is just so annoying. And it just takes so long to like work through like their mistakes, and then they never want to admit they're wrong. And it's like, just not worth it usually. So what do we got? I got her perfume. So you're saying she smells? Yeah, that's a good one. Yeah, I mean you can flip anything around like that, right? Like, hey babe, I got you a watch for Valentine's Day. Oh, so you're saying I'm never on time, huh? Like, you can flip anything around using Strawman. It's the worst. Like, it really is, because it's essentially a form of lying, right? Like, it's a form of lying about what the other person said to make them look dumb, or to make them look simple-minded, or to yeah, if you can't attack their stance any other way, you just exaggerate it out to something they didn't say, and then you attack that because it's a lot easier to understand, right? Oh, you support abortion, so you must want to abort all babies, and then the human race will die. Well, no, I didn't say that, right? I didn't like reading that book. So books are just boring. I don't believe in COVID. So you're saying COVID is fake. Well, Noel, that's kind of... So if somebody says I don't believe in COVID, like that is kind of saying COVID's fake, right? Like that's sort of... Like if you said like, I don't believe in masking or something like that, then you could say, oh, so you're saying COVID doesn't exist or something like that. Yeah, it's just super annoying. Mom would rather go to the beach and water parks, so she hates water parks. That is the form of online argumentation. You prefer A over B. You must love A 100%. You must hate B 100%. If you say anything defending Elon, you must love Elon and everything he does. If you say anything defending Biden, you must love Biden and everything he does. If you say anything defending Trump, you must love Trump and everything he does. And guess what? There is nobody that I agree with 100%. There's nobody I agree with over 90% probably. Like it's absolutely ridiculous. But that black and white thinking is the essence of Facebook. I hate coffee, so you're saying you aren't a caffeine addict. Sure. Okay. So, ad hominem. Ad hominem, a lot of people think that ad hominem is like when you're swearing at somebody, right? Like you're an idiot. You know, that's actually not what an ad hominem is. An ad hominem is when the argument, somebody makes an argument and then they attack the argument by attacking the person making the argument. Right? But guess what? The person making the argument doesn't matter. Right? 2 + 2 equals 4 is true no matter who made it, right? If Jeffrey Dahmer said, 2 + 2 = 4, it's still correct. If Hitler said 2 + 2 = 4, it's still correct. The person making the argument actually doesn't matter as to whether or not the argument is true, right? Unless you're saying like, I am a vegetarian or something like that, then I guess the person's relevant. But if you do what's called a reductio ad Hitlerum, which is very common online, you say, well, who else was a vegetarian? Hitler. So you're attacking the argument that vegetarianism is an ethical duty by saying, well, Hitler was a vegetarian, and that's an ad hominem, right? It's specifically a reductio ad Hitlerum, or people will sometimes call it Godwin's law. The longer an internet conversation goes on, the probability that somebody invokes Hitler or Nazis approaches 100%. Socialism is a dangerous political and economic system that leads to tyranny. Well, that's just something a bougie would say, right? So it's when you respond to an argument by going after the person making it. And that's not allowed. In fact, that is a 10-yard penalty, right? So I've posted this website onto Canvas. Some of my friends use this all the time on Facebook within our own friend group. And they'll post the circular logic, penalty and things like that. I rather get tacos than steak, so I like tacos, sure. So an ad hominem is just, it's not a valid counter argument. If the worst person in the world can make a good argument. Like it doesn't matter who it is making it. So tu quoque is related to ad hominem. Tu quoque is short for you too. And this is the argument that kids make, like kind of bratty kids make to their parents, right? Like if the parent says, hey, go clean your room, and the kid says, hey, your bedroom is dirty too. That's tu quoque, right? They respond to something by pointing out hypocrisy in the other person. So the USSR would famously respond to America because America would say like, hey, look, the USSR is engaging in mass genocide and executions and sending people straight to gulag, right? Like, look at Siberia and all the gulags in the Siberia and people suffering there. And the USSR wouldn't deny it necessarily. What they would say is, well, the US has problems too. Look at how the US treats black people, right? And so it's like, that's not a counter argument. Like both sides can be wrong. You know what I mean? Like both sides can have issues, And so the USSR would defend itself by just pointing out hypocrisy in America. And this is probably the most famous example of tu quoque, you too. Anytime you hear somebody say that pot's calling the kettle black, that is tu quoque. You know, you're basically saying, well, look, this person, you know, like, you know, Uncle Greg, who went to, you know, upstate prison for 7 years, he came out of prison and said, you should not shoplift. You're like, but Uncle Greg, you shoplifted. It's not like, maybe Uncle Greg knows, you know, like he knows at this point, like it's not worth it, you know? So, you know, just because somebody's a hypocrite doesn't mean they're wrong. You know, you should do your homework. Well, you're not doing your homework. I know. I'm a bad student. So, trust me, I know bad students. You should be doing your homework right now. You know, you got a midterm tomorrow. You're playing Hogwarts Legacy instead of, you know, instead of doing your homework. But you're not doing your homework. I know. I'm a bad student. We both should be doing our homework. Do you guys understand tu quoque? What do you guys think? Tu quoque means you too. You're doing the same thing. It's incredibly relatable. Yeah, it happens all the time. Like I've picked the greatest hits of fallacies. Maybe fallacy of composition and division probably doesn't come up that much. Mostly fallacy of division, and that's when, and the reason why I mentioned fallacy of composition is just because fallacy of division, but fallacy of division is used a lot. Oh, you're a member of a group, you must agree with everything they say. Very, very common online, especially if you're like, if you tag yourself like, I am a, you know, socialist. Well, clearly you must support sending people straight to Gulag or something, right? You tag yourself a Republican. Oh, you must want to take away all women's rights, you know? It's a fallacy of division is pretty common, but fallacy of composition, not too often. But other than that, like pretty much all of these fallacies that I give you guys are things that you see all the time, and it makes politics a lot more fun, and it makes watching marketing and PR speak a lot more fun. Makes watching the media a lot more fun because you can see all of these fallacies used all the time. You're like, oh, it's that one. Yeah. Janitor, I think you should clean your room. Why don't you clean your room? It's messier than mine. Yeah. So that would be tu quoque, right? Like you should clean your room. Yeah, but your room's messy. You know. Maybe we should both clean our room. Yeah. So, yeah, it's quite common. All right, so appeal to ignorance. So this is one of the fallacies that I get students with a lot. Like I'll put it like I remember on one midterm I put appeal to ignorance as like an option on like every question, and like probably a quarter of the students were picking it for every question, and because they're like that's an ignorant argument, so it must be appeal to ignorance. Wrong. No, it is no. Appeal to ignorance is when somebody says this. They say, I don't know why X, therefore Y. Okay. And you basically can't do that, right? Like, I don't know which football team is going to win the World Series. I don't know which football team is going to win the Super Bowl next year. Therefore, it'll be the Buffalo Bills, right? That doesn't make any sense, right? Like, if you don't know, how can you conclude it's going to be the Bills or the Chargers or whatever, right? Like, do you guys see that? So anytime you have an argument of the form, I don't know why X, therefore Y, it's an appeal to ignorance. I don't know how the universe was made, therefore it was God. I don't know how the universe was made, therefore it was not God. Both of those are invalid arguments. You cannot conclude anything from your lack of knowledge. Okay? The only thing you can conclude is, therefore, I don't know. You know, like that's valid. Like, I don't know who's going to win the World Series next year, therefore I'm not going to put any money down. Yeah, something like that. Like, is valid. But like, anytime you say, I don't know why something, and you try, like, I don't know who the murderer is, therefore it's this guy. Like, you can't do that. That's appeal to ignorance. You guys understand that one? It's usually pretty easy to recognize, where the person just says, I don't know, I don't have any information, and then they conclude something anyway. You guys with me on this? Appeal to ignorance? All right. It'll be on your quiz. And that's it for today. So, I guess we'll end 5 minutes early today. Hope you guys don't mind. And we will continue with, so we did 6 today. Appeal to ignorance. I don't know why, therefore X. To Quoque. Hey, you do it too. Ad hominem. You're a doo-doo head. That's not a valid canon argument, is it? Doo-doo head. Strawman arguments. I think we should take calculus. You're a doo-doo head. Not ad hom. All right. Strawman. Well, why do you hate pineapples so much? You know, you say you like mangoes, you must hate pineapples. And non sequitur when the conclusion doesn't follow from the premise. 2 + 2 = 4, therefore you should drink coffee, non sequitur. So that is it for today. And we will pick this up on Wednesday with more fallacies. And like I said, on Canvas, I have a cheat sheet that has all these things listed out. So if you're like worried about kind of how to keep them all straight in your head, like I said, there's a cheat sheet. You can see it in the file section called Fallacies Cheat Sheet. Okay. Happy birthday to me. No, it's not my birthday, but thank you. All right. I'll see you guys on Wednesday. Peace out. Happy Halloween.